You step out of the car, the crunch of gravel underfoot, a stark counterpoint to the hushed whisper of the autumn wind through the ancient pines. The air, crisp and tasting of wood smoke and damp earth, filled your lungs with a cool, invigorating rush. Before you, bathed in the soft, fading gold of a late afternoon sun, stood Blackwood Manor. It wasn't merely a lodge, it was a testament to time, a grand stone edifice with ivy clinging like a lover to its walls, nestled by the dark, mirror-still expanse of Lake Cerulean. This was it, your sanctuary for the next few weeks, a place you'd chosen for solitude, for the quiet embrace of nature and the gentle hum of forgotten thoughts. The heavy oak door, adorned with intricate ironwork, swung open silently as you approached, revealing a vestibule that smelled of beeswax, old books, and something subtly floral, perhaps dried lavender from the gardens. A tall, elegant woman, her silver hair coiled into a neat bun, greeted you with a warm, knowing smile. "Welcome to Blackwood Manor, Miss Evangeline," she said, her voice a low, melodious hum. "I am Ilara. We've been expecting you." Ilara led you through a labyrinth of polished wood floors, Persian rugs that hushed your footsteps, and rooms where velvet curtains were drawn back to reveal breathtaking views of the lake. Each space felt curated, lived in, yet pristine, a delicate balance of history and comfort. You passed a library with towering shelves groaning under the weight of leather-bound volumes, a drawing room where a grand piano sat silent, promising melodies. Finally, she brought you to your suite. It was everything you had imagined and more. A vast, sun-drenched room with a four-poster bed draped in cream linen, a crackling fire in a stone hearth, and French doors opening onto a private balcony overlooking the lake. A clawfoot tub gleamed in the adjoining bathroom, promising long, luxurious soaks. "Dinner is at 8, Ilara informed you, her eyes twinkling. "Dress is informal, but we do encourage a touch of elegance." She paused at the door, her gaze lingering on you. "Enjoy your solitude, Miss Evangeline. Though sometimes," she added, a faint, enigmatic smile playing on her lips, "solitude has a way of inviting unexpected company." You spent the next few hours unwinding, letting the silence of the manor settle around you like a comforting shore. You unpacked, laid out a deep emerald velvet dress that felt perfect for an evening in a grand old house, and then indulged in a long, hot bath. The water, scented with wild rose and sandalwood, enveloped you, washing away the last remnants of the journey and the world you'd left behind. As you emerged, wrapped in a plush towel, the reflection in the antique mirror showed a woman softening, a subtle luminescence beginning to bloom in your eyes. By the time you descended the grand staircase, the manor had transformed. The last vestiges of daylight had faded, replaced by the soft glow of sconces and the dancing flames in various fireplaces. The air was warmer now, rich with the scent of burning logs and something delicious wafting from the dining room. Roasted herbs, perhaps, or a rich stew. Your velvet dress, though simple in cut, hugged your curves in a way that felt both sophisticated and subtly alluring, the fabric whispering against your skin with every movement. You found the dining room, a long, elegant space dominated by a heavy mahogany table set for what appeared to be more than just one. Odd, you thought, as Ilara had implied you would be the only guest for the immediate future. A single-place setting was meticulously arranged at the head of the table, and another directly opposite. As you hesitated, a low, resonant voice broke the silence, seeming to vibrate through the very floorboards. "Evangeline, I trust your journey was pleasant?" You turned, your breath catching in your throat. He stood framed in the archway leading to the library, a glass of amber liquid in one hand, the other tucked casually into the pocket of dark trousers. He was tall, undeniably, with a lean, athletic build that spoke of understated strength. His dark hair, slightly disheveled, framed a face that was a study in contrasts: sharp cheekbones, a strong jawline, but softened by eyes the color of polished obsidian, deep and impossibly ancient, that seemed to hold both a challenge and an invitation. His mouth, a sensual curve, was currently tilted in a smile that was less a greeting and more a slow, unfolding revelation. He moved with a languid grace that was almost predatory, crossing the room in a few unhurried strides. He wore a dark, open-necked shirt beneath a charcoal blazer, the fabric clinging just enough to hint at the sculpted form beneath. You felt an immediate primal recognition, a jolt that went straight to your core, bypassing all rational thought. Your carefully constructed composure wavered. "Forgive my intrusion," he said, his voice a rich baritone, like velvet on a cello string. "I am Rhys. Rhys Blackwood. This is, in fact, my home." Alara, it seems, neglected to mention my occasional presence. His gaze was intense, unwavering, sweeping over you with an almost tangible weight, lingering on the subtle curve of your neck, where a strand of hair had escaped, then dropping to the swell of your chest beneath the velvet. It wasn't an invasive stare, but one of profound appreciation, as if he were memorizing every detail, tracing your essence with his eyes. You felt a blush creep up your neck, a warmth that had nothing to do with the fire. "Evangeline," you managed, your voice a little breathy, a little higher than you intended. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Rhys." The name felt natural on your tongue, a soft caress. He extended a hand, long fingers, strong and elegant. His skin was warm, a fleeting spark passing between your palms as he took your hand in his thumb brushing lightly over your knuckles. The touch was brief, yet it left a lingering heat, a humming awareness that settled deep within you. "The pleasure, I assure you, is entirely mine," he murmured, his gaze dropping to your joined hands for a moment before rising back to meet yours, a knowing glint in the obsidian depths. "I confess, I had anticipated a quiet stay, a few days of uninterrupted work, but I find myself not displeased by this turn of events." He released your hands slowly, almost reluctantly, and gestured towards the table. "Shall we? Ilara's cooking deserves prompt attention." He pulled out the chair opposite yours, his proximity as he did so sending a shiver down your spine. A faint masculine scent, woodsy and subtly spiced, drifted to you, intoxicating in its uniqueness. You sat, feeling the soft velvet of your dress rustle against the antique wood, acutely aware of his presence as he settled into his own seat. Dinner unfolded in a strange, captivating dance. Ilara, it turned out, was not only the manor's caretaker, but also its exceptional chef. Course after exquisite course appeared, a delicate mushroom consommé, pan-seared duck breast with cherry reduction, a rich chocolate torte, each dish a masterpiece. But the food, glorious as it was, became secondary to the conversation, to the electric current that hummed between you and Rhys. He spoke with an easy eloquence, his voice modulating from deep contemplation to light-hearted teasing. He was knowledgeable about everything from ancient philosophy to modern art, from star charts to forgotten folk tales. He listened to you with an intensity that made you feel utterly seen, utterly heard, his eyes never leaving yours as you spoke. You found yourself sharing thoughts and feelings you hadn't voiced in years, drawn out by his genuine curiosity and the undeniable magnetism he exuded. You learned he was a writer, a historian, currently working on a book about the forgotten legends of the region. He spent his days in the library, surrounded by dusty tomes, and his evenings by the lake, watching the stars. He had a dry wit that made you laugh, a deep thoughtfulness that resonated with your own quiet nature, and an underlying passion that sparked a similar fire within you. As the evening deepened, the wine flowed, a rich, garnet-colored vintage that warmed you from the inside out. The candlelight flickered, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls, making the room feel intimate, secluded from the world outside. The conversation drifted, becoming less about facts and more about feelings, about dreams and desires, about the unseen currents that guide human lives. "What brings you to Blackwood Manor, Evangeline?" he asked, his voice softer now, a little huskier, as he leaned forward, resting his forearms on the table. The sleeves of his blazer were pushed up slightly, revealing strong, corded wrists. You hesitated, searching for the right words. "I needed a pause, a space to breathe, to reconnect with myself, perhaps. My life has been rather demanding of late." You didn't elaborate, and he didn't press, but his eyes held a depth of understanding that surprised you. "And what do you hope to find in this pause?" He probed gently, his gaze unwavering, almost as if he were looking into the very landscape of your soul. "Clarity, I suppose," you admitted, feeling a lightness in confessing it to him. "And perhaps a different kind of inspiration. Away from the noise, the expectations." He nodded slowly, a faint smile playing on his lips. "The manner has a way of revealing things, of stirring dormant desires." His voice dropped, becoming a low murmur that seemed meant only for your ears. "Sometimes, it shows us what we truly long for, even if we hadn't dared to name it." His words hung in the air, charged with unspoken meaning. You felt a tremor pass through you, a sudden, almost overwhelming awareness of the space between you, of the air that vibrated with an electric current. Your eyes locked, and in that gaze, you saw a reflection of your own nascent longing, a shared recognition of something profound and inevitable. The last of the dessert was cleared, and Elara, with a knowing glance that seemed to encompass the entire charged atmosphere, offered coffee and liqueurs in the drawing room. Rhys rose, offering you his arm with a courtly gesture. Your fingers brushed his forearm as you took it, the contact sending a jolt through your system, a silent declaration of the undeniable pull between you. The drawing room was even more inviting now, the fire roaring merrily, casting a warm, inviting glow. Rhys led you to a pair of deep, velvet armchairs positioned intimately close to the hearth. He poured 2 glasses of a dark, aromatic brandy, handing one to you, his fingers brushing yours once more. The warmth of the glass in your hand was a comforting echo of his touch. You sank into the armchair, the plush fabric enveloping you, feeling utterly at ease, yet simultaneously on edge. The air crackled with an unspoken energy, a delicious tension that was both thrilling and a little frightening. Rhys settled into the chair opposite, his long legs stretched out towards the fire, his gaze never quite leaving you. "Tell me about your work, Evangeline," he prompted, his voice a low rumble, perfectly suited to the intimacy of the moment. "What demands so much of your spirit?" You spoke of your career, of the intricate designs you created, the precision and passion required. You described the pressure, the constant need to innovate, to push boundaries. As you spoke, you felt his undivided attention, a tangible focus that made your words flow effortlessly. He didn't interrupt, but his eyes, dark and fathomless, reflected a deep understanding, a shared artistic sensibility. "It sounds immensely rewarding," he said finally, when you paused, "but also intensely draining, to pour so much of yourself into creation." He took a slow sip of his brandy, his eyes still on yours. "Do you ever feel empty after a particularly arduous project, as if a part of you has been given away?" You nodded, a wave of recognition washing over you. "Often. It's a bittersweet exhaustion. A beautiful emptiness, but emptiness nonetheless." "And how do you refill that well?" he asked, his voice dropping to a whisper, as if sharing a secret. You looked into the flickering flames, then back at him. "Nature mostly, solitude, and sometimes beauty." Your gaze held his, and in the silence that followed, the unspoken meaning hung heavy in the air. He was a form of unexpected beauty, a potent, intoxicating force that was already beginning to refill something within you that you hadn't even realized was depleted. He smiled, a slow, knowing curve of his lips that sent a tremor through you. "I understand completely." He leaned forward slightly, his elbow resting on his knee, the brandy glass held loosely in his hand. The firelight played across his features, highlighting the planes and angles of his face, making his eyes seem even deeper, even more compelling. "There are certain encounters, aren't there, that act like a sudden spring, that replenish not just the mind, but the very soul, in ways you never anticipated." His words were a velvet whisper, drawing you in, wrapping around you. You felt a strange, almost dizzying sensation, as if the room itself were tilting, and only his presence anchored you. The air between you thickened, becoming almost palpable, charged with an unspoken question, a nascent desire. He set his glass down on the small table beside him, the soft click echoing in the hushed room. Then very slowly, his hand reached out, not to touch you directly, but to pick up a stray strand of your hair that had fallen forward, a dark tendril against the emerald velvet of your dress. His fingers, warm and gentle, brushed against your shoulder as he lifted the strand, his thumb tracing its silken length. Your breath hitched. The simple, innocent gesture was anything but. It was an exquisite torment, a feather-light touch that promised so much more. You felt the heat of his skin through the fabric of your dress, the faint tremor in his fingers as he held your hair. His gaze, dark and intense, was fixed on your lips, then your eyes, then back to your lips, a silent invitation, a slow, deliberate seduction. "Velvet," he murmured, his voice barely audible, a low thrum against the backdrop of the crackling fire. "Like your dress, soft, rich, full of hidden depths." He let the strand fall, his fingers lingering for a fraction of a second longer on your shoulder before withdrawing, leaving a trail of warmth that burned against your skin. The silence that followed was deafening, filled with the thrumming of your own heart, the rush of blood through your veins. You could feel the pulse beating in your throat, a frantic flutter. The air between you was alive, electric, thick with unspoken words, with the weight of burgeoning desire. He leaned back slowly, his eyes still locked with yours, a faint, enigmatic smile playing on his lips. "It's late," he said, his voice a little rougher now, as if he too was struggling to regain his composure. "Perhaps we should retire." The suggestion, though entirely proper, felt like a tease, a slow, drawn-out agony. You wanted to protest, to demand more of this exquisite tension, more of his company, more of the intoxicating dance that had begun. But the lateness of the hour, the lingering touch, the intensity of his gaze had left you breathless, your mind reeling. You rose, feeling strangely unsteady on your feet, the wine and the sheer force of his presence having stolen your equilibrium. He stood too, his height seeming even more imposing in the soft light. He walked with you to the foot of the grand staircase, the silence between you now heavy, charged with a potent awareness. At the bottom of the stairs you turned to face him. His eyes, dark as midnight and just as mysterious, held yours. There was a question in them, a silent challenge, a promise. Your heart hammered against your ribs. "Good night, Evangeline," he said, his voice a low, intimate rumble. He didn't move to touch you, but his gaze was a caress, a slow, deliberate journey over your face, down your neck, lingering on the velvet of your dress. "Good night, Whis," he whispered, your voice barely a breath. You turned and ascended the stairs, your hand gripping the polished banister, acutely aware of his eyes on your back. With every step, you felt the heat of his gaze, imagining it burning through the velvet, imprinting itself on your skin. You didn't dare look back, afraid of what you might see, afraid of what you might do. Once in the sanctuary of your room, you leaned against the closed door, your heart still racing. The scent of wood smoke and a lingering trace of his unique, intoxicating fragrance still clung to your dress, to your skin. You walked to the French doors and stepped out onto the balcony. The lake shimmered under a sliver of moon, the pines stood sentinel, dark and ancient. The night air was cool, a stark contrast to the fire that now burned within you. You closed your eyes, pressing your hands against your flushed cheeks. Whis Blackwood. His name echoed in your mind, a potent incantation. He was not what you had come seeking, not solitude, not quiet introspection. He was a disruption, an earthquake, a sudden, blinding flash in the quiet canvas of your planned retreat. You gazed at the dark expanse of the manor, imagining him still downstairs, perhaps by the fire, perhaps watching the lake as you were. A shiver, not of cold, but of delicious anticipation, ran through you. Elera's words came back to you. Solitude has a way of inviting unexpected company. And sometimes you realized that company arrives in a storm of velvet whispers and obsidian eyes, shattering everything you thought you knew about what you wanted. The night stretched before you, long and silent, but no longer empty. It was filled with his image. His voice, the phantom touch of his fingers, and the undeniable promise of tomorrow. You knew with a certainty that both thrilled and terrified you that your retreat to Blackwood Manor had just begun, and it was going to be anything but quiet. The velvet whispers had just started. The silence of your chamber was no longer a comfort, but a vast, echoing space where his presence still lingered. The storm outside had dwindled to a soft, persistent drizzle, a gentle counterpoint to the tempest that still raged within you. You lay in the vast antique bed, tangled in silk sheets that felt suddenly too cool, too empty. His obsidian eyes, the velvet whisper of his voice, the phantom pressure of his fingers against your skin. They were etched into the very fabric of the night, refusing to dissipate with the dawn. You pushed yourself up, the cool air raising goosebumps on your arms, a stark contrast to the heat that had flared through you mere hours ago. The room was bathed in the muted light of a grey morning, highlighting the rich, dark wood of the furniture, the heavy brocade drapes. Blackwood Manor, in its waking state, felt less menacing, more watchful. But the watch it kept was no longer against the outside world. It was focused inward, on the tumultuous landscape of your own desires. A tremor ran through you, a blend of fear and exhilaration. You had come here to escape, to find solitude, to heal. Instead, you had stumbled into a force that promised to unravel you completely, piece by intoxicating piece. You walked to the window, pushing aside the heavy curtain. The gardens below were shrouded in mist, the ancient trees weeping silent tears. A deep breath, meant to steady you, only filled your lungs with the scent of damp earth, and something else, a faint, elusive fragrance that your mind instantly associated with wood smoke, pine, and a deeper, musky note that clung to the memory like a secret. How would you face him? What would you say? The elegant composure you usually wore felt like a fragile veneer, ready to shatter under the intensity of his gaze. You were a woman of intellect, of control, accustomed to navigating the complexities of your world with a quiet strength. But last night, that world had been irrevocably altered. You found yourself yearning for something you couldn't name, something primal and untamed, something that had his face and his voice. You dressed slowly, choosing a deep forest green gown that mirrored the muted tones of the morning, its heavy fabric a comforting weight against your skin. It felt like armor, perhaps, against the vulnerability that now clung to you like dew. Each movement was deliberate, an attempt to anchor yourself, to find your bearings in this new, disorienting reality. Breakfast was a quiet affair in the grand dining room, the long table gleaming with polished silver, reflecting the pale light. A single place setting for you, served by the stoic housekeeper, Mrs. Albright. There was no sign of him. A part of you felt a flicker of relief, the chance to gather your thoughts. A larger, more insistent part felt a pang of disappointment, a hollow ache that surprised you with its intensity. You sipped your tea, the warmth a small comfort. Your mind replayed every glance, every word, every charged silence from the previous night. He had spoken of velvet whispers, of shattering what you thought you knew. And he had done exactly that. The world had shifted on its axis, and you were left clinging to the fragments of your former self, wondering who you were becoming. The morning bled into a restless afternoon. You found yourself unable to focus on the book you had brought, or the letters that required your attention. The manor felt alive, pulsating with an energy you hadn't perceived before, as if it too was waiting. You wandered through the labyrinthine corridors, tracing the patterns of the antique wallpaper, running your fingers over the cool, dark wood of the banisters. Your steps led you eventually to the extensive library, a room you had intended to make your sanctuary. It was a magnificent space, filled floor to ceiling with ancient tomes, the air thick with the scent of old paper and leather. And there he was. He stood by a tall, arched window, sunlight, now breaking through the clouds, illuminating the dust motes dancing around him like tiny spirits. He was clad in dark, unadorned clothing, a simple linen shirt, sleeves rolled to reveal strong forearms, and trousers of a deep, almost black hue. He wasn't reading, but looking out, his profile sharp against the brightening sky, his dark hair falling just so, catching the light. He turned slowly, as if sensing your presence, and his gaze met yours across the expanse of the room. The world seemed to hold its breath. Those obsidian eyes, even in the daylight, held a depth that threatened to swallow you whole. They were knowing, assessing, and utterly devoid of surprise. He had expected you. "Good afternoon," he said, his voice a low timbre that resonated through the quiet library, stirring something deep within you. It was less a question, more an acknowledgement, a subtle claim. "Good afternoon," you managed, your voice a little breathy, betraying the calm you strove to project. You felt a blush creep up your neck, a warmth that had nothing to do with the sun. He offered a slight, enigmatic smile, the corners of his lips barely lifting. "I trust you slept well, despite the lingering storm." The implication hung in the air, thick and potent. "And despite the storm I stirred within you." You felt heat bloom across your cheeks. "The storm outside has passed," you replied, choosing your words carefully, "but sometimes the echoes remain." His eyes gleamed, a silent acknowledgement of your veiled meaning. He walked slowly towards a large mahogany desk in the center of the room, his movements fluid, almost predatory. He picked up a leather-bound volume, turning it over in his hands, his fingers long and elegant. Echoes are often the most powerful, wouldn't you agree? They linger, reminding us of what has been, and perhaps what could be. He didn't look at you as he spoke, his gaze fixed on the book, but you felt the full force of his attention, a tangible pressure that made your skin tingle. You found yourself walking towards him, drawn by an invisible thread, unable to resist. "What could be?" you echoed, your voice barely a whisper when you reached the desk, standing a respectful but perilous distance from him. The scent of him was stronger now. Wood smoke, something wild, and a subtle undertone of old paper and leather, as if he belonged entirely to this ancient house. He finally looked up, his eyes locking with yours, and the intensity was breathtaking. Possibilities, uncharted territories, the unraveling of preconceived notions. His gaze dropped to your lips for a fleeting moment, a silent promise, a potent invitation. "You came to Blackwood Manor seeking quiet, did you not? A retreat from the world." "Yes," you admitted, feeling a strange vulnerability under his scrutiny. "A place to reconsider." "And what have you reconsidered?" His voice was soft, persuasive, like the gentle lapping of waves against a hidden shore. He leaned back against the desk, his arms crossed, an air of relaxed power about him. You hesitated, searching for words that wouldn't betray the tumultuous landscape of your heart. "My expectations," you finally offered, "of solitude, of peace." He chuckled, a low, rich sound that vibrated through the room. "Through you? Peace, my dear, is often found in the most unexpected storms, and solitude is merely the space awaiting companionship." His eyes held yours, a challenge, an invitation, a silent question. "Tell me, what do you know of this manor?" The shift in topic, from the intensely personal to the historical, was a subtle masterstroke. It allowed you to breathe, to regain a semblance of composure, even as the tension between you remained a taut, humming wire. You spoke of the manor's documented history, the various families who had owned it, the legends you'd read in old texts. He listened, his gaze unwavering, occasionally interjecting with a detail you hadn't known, a nuance that suggested a much deeper, more personal connection to Blackwood. "The stones themselves hold memory," he murmured, picking up a small, smooth river stone that lay on the desk, turning it over and over in his fingers. "They whisper tales to those who listen closely enough." His eyes, when they met yours again, were alight with a strange, ancient wisdom. "This manor has seen joy and sorrow, love and loss. It breathes with the echoes of lives lived within its walls." You found yourself drawn into his narrative, a tapestry woven with facts and folklore, infused with an intimacy that made the old house feel less like an inanimate structure and more like a living entity. He spoke of hidden passages, forgotten gardens, and a secret chamber said to contain the manor's truest heart. "Would you care to explore?" he asked, his voice a quiet invitation, his eyes holding a sparkle of mischief. Blackwood Manor reveals its secrets only to those with a curious spirit. The invitation thrilled you, a spark of adventure igniting within. "I would," you said, a genuine smile gracing your lips for the first time that day. He pushed off the desk, his movement fluid, and extended a hand towards a heavy oak door at the back of the library, one you hadn't noticed before, camouflaged by the shelves. "Then let us begin." You followed him through the door, which led into a narrow, winding corridor, dimly lit by a single ornate lantern. The air here was cooler, heavy with the scent of damp stone and something else, something metallic and earthy. This was a part of the manor clearly not for guests, a hidden artery of the ancient house. He moved with an easy grace, his broad shoulders brushing against the rough-hewn stone walls. You found yourself watching the subtle play of muscles beneath his shirt, the strong line of his back, the way his dark hair curled at the nape of his neck. Your senses were heightened, acutely aware of his proximity. The corridor opened into a small circular room, entirely devoid of windows, lit by what appeared to be ancient, flickering gas lamps, though you couldn't see a mechanism. The walls were covered in faded tapestries depicting hunting scenes, and in the center stood a pedestal holding a large, intricately carved wooden chest. "This," he said, his voice dropping to a near whisper, "is one of the manor's oldest secrets, a place of contemplation, of memory." He turned to you, his face illuminated by the dancing lamplight, shadows playing across his strong features, making him appear even more enigmatic. "And this chest, it is said to hold the manor's dreams." He reached out, his long fingers brushing lightly over the carved lid. The touch was almost reverent. You watched, mesmerized, as he unlatched the heavy brass clasps. A faint, almost imperceptible wine tampon echoed in the small room as he lifted the lid. Inside, nestled on a bed of dark velvet, lay not jewels or gold, but a collection of ancient artifacts. A tarnished silver locket, a dried rose pressed between two panes of glass, a yellowed letter tied with a silk ribbon, a small, smooth stone, similar to the one he had held earlier. Each item seemed imbued with a quiet power, a silent story. He picked up the locket, his thumb tracing its delicate engraving. "A promise," he murmured, his voice soft between lovers separated by war. She waited. He never returned. He placed it back gently. Then he picked up the dried rose. A fleeting moment of beauty, preserved. A summer's day, a dance in the moonlight, a stolen kiss. His eyes, deep and dark, met yours over the fragile flower. The air thrummed with unspoken emotion, the weight of centuries of longing and passion. You felt a wave of empathy for the unknown lovers, their stories brought to life by his resonant voice, by the intensity of his gaze. He put the rose back, then without a word he took your hand. Your breath hitched. His skin was warm, firm, slightly calloused, a stark contrast to the coolness of your own. His thumb brushed over your knuckles, a deliberate, slow caress that sent a shiver through you, a spark igniting deep within your core. It wasn't merely a touch, it was an electric current, mapping the pathways of your desire. "These are the whispers of Blackwood," he said, his voice husky, his eyes never leaving yours, "the stories that shape its soul." And sometimes he leaned in closer, his scent enveloping you, intoxicating, "they become our own." His gaze dropped again to your lips, and for a heart-stopping moment you thought he would kiss you. Your pulse quickened, a frantic drumbeat against your ribs. Your eyes fluttered closed for an instant, anticipating, yearning. You could feel the warmth of his breath on your face, the subtle pull of his presence. But the kiss didn't come. Instead, he slowly, almost regretfully, released your hand. The sudden absence of his touch left a cold ache, a stark reminder of what had almost been. He stepped back, a small knowing smile playing on his lips. "Come," he said, his voice now lighter, though still laced with a captivating depth. "There is more to see." He led you through another hidden passage, this one opening directly into the manor's sprawling, overgrown gardens. The sun, now higher in the sky, cast long shadows through the ancient trees, illuminating pathways choked with wild roses and ivy. It was a place of wild beauty, untamed and mysterious, much like him. The formal gardens have long been neglected, he explained, walking ahead of you, pushing aside a tangle of brambles. But there's a certain charm in their wildness. Wouldn't you agree? Nature reclaiming what man sought to control. You nodded, captivated by the scene. It's beautiful, you breathed, inhaling the rich scent of damp earth, blooming jasmine, and something else, something green and wild. He led you deeper, through archways of gnarled branches, past crumbling stone fountains where moss had taken root. He pointed out ancient trees, their branches twisted into grotesque, yet magnificent, shapes, telling you their species, their age, even a small anecdote about each one. His knowledge of the natural world seemed as profound as his understanding of the manor itself. You found yourself relaxing into his presence, the initial apprehension slowly giving way to a comfortable, albeit charged, intimacy. You asked him questions about his life, his connection to Blackwood, but his answers remained tantalizingly vague, hinting at a past that was both long and complex, yet never truly revealing. My connection to Blackwood, he said, pausing by a particularly ancient oak, its trunk wider than two men, is as old as the manor itself. I have seen many seasons here, many lives unfold. He ran his hand over the rough bark, his expression unreadable. Some might say I am merely a steward, others a ghost of its past. He turned to you, a glint in his eyes that made your heart skip. What do you say? You met his gaze, refusing to look away, despite the intensity. I say you are a man of many layers, and Blackwood Manor is merely one of them. He smiled, a genuine warm smile that softened the edges of his mystery, making him incredibly handsome. Perhaps. And you, my dear? What layers do you seek to peel away here? The question was direct, probing. You hesitated, then decided to be honest, at least in part. I seek clarity, a new perspective, to escape, a life that felt increasingly suffocating. His smile faded, replaced by an expression of deep understanding. Suffocation is a cruel master. Blackwood offers space, freedom, but sometimes freedom itself can be terrifying, can it not? The vastness of choice. You nodded, a lump forming in your throat. He understood, truly understood, the unspoken pain, the quiet desperation that had driven you here. His empathy, unexpected and profound, forged a new link between you, one that transcended mere physical attraction. As you walked, the sun began its slow descent, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. The air grew cooler, carrying the scent of impending evening. You found yourselves in a secluded clearing, where an ancient stone bench sat beneath a sprawling willow tree, its branches weeping gracefully towards the ground. We should return, he said, his voice a low regret, before the night claims the gardens completely. You didn't want to. You wanted to stay here in this magical wild place with him forever. But you knew the moment was fleeting. As you turned to leave, your foot caught on a gnarled root. You stumbled, and he was there instantly, his arm circling your waist, steadying you. His touch was firm, possessive, yet gentle. You felt the warmth of his hand through the fabric of your gown, the hard muscle of his arm against your back. You were pressed against him, your bodies brushing, and the world seemed to shrink to the space between you. You could feel the strong beat of his heart against your arm, smell his unique scent more powerfully than ever. His gaze dropped to your lips again, lingering, questioning. Your breath caught, your chest rising and falling rapidly. This time the yearning was almost unbearable. You wanted him to kiss you, to pull you closer, to erase the lingering doubts with the undeniable truth of his touch. He leaned in, his head tilting, his eyes half-lidded, dark with desire. Your own eyes fluttered closed, a silent invitation. You could feel the warmth of his breath, the promise of his lips. Careful, he whispered, his voice a low rumble, laced with a potent mix of warning and desire. These old roots have a way of tripping up the unwary. And then, as suddenly as he had pulled you close, he released you, his touch fading like a dream. He stepped back, a small knowing smile on his lips, his eyes gleaming with a challenge. The manor, it seems, wishes to keep you close. You stood there, trembling slightly, your heart pounding a frantic rhythm. He had pulled back again, just at the precipice. It was a game, you realized, a tantalizing dance of approach and retreat, designed to heighten the tension, to deepen the yearning. And you, against all your rational instincts, were utterly captivated by it. The evening found you both in the grand drawing room, a roaring fire casting dancing shadows across the velvet furniture and the antique portraits. The atmosphere was different now, less formal, more intimate, softened by the amber glow. Mrs. Albright had brought tea and a plate of delicate shortbread, leaving you alone in the vast, comfortable space. You sat on a plush sofa, a respectful distance from him, though every fibre of your being yearned to close the gap. He was in a large armchair opposite, his gaze often drifting to you, a silent conversation passing between your eyes. The air was thick with unspoken words, with the lingering heat of the day's encounters. "The manor seems to favor you," you ventured, breaking the comfortable silence. "It shares its secrets readily with you." He took a slow sip of his tea, his eyes never leaving yours over the rim of the cup. "Perhaps? Or perhaps I merely understand its language." He set the cup down, his gaze intensifying. "And perhaps it merely sees a kindred spirit." The implication hung in the air. "You are also a kindred spirit. You also understand its language. You also belong here." Arcan. You felt a warmth spread through you, a dangerous, thrilling warmth. "And what language is that?" "The language of longing," he replied, his voice soft, hypnotic, of beauty, of the wild heart. "The language of that which is hidden, waiting to be discovered." He leaned forward slightly, his elbows resting on his knees, his eyes fixed on yours. "Are you prepared to learn it?" The question was loaded, heavy with implication. It wasn't just about the manner but about the secrets of your own heart, the wildness within you that he seemed to sense and stir. You swallowed, your mouth suddenly dry. I believe I am," you whispered, the words feeling both brave and terrifying. He smiled then, a slow, sensual curve of his lips that sent a shiver down your spine. "Good? Because Blackwood Manor, and perhaps I, have many lessons yet to teach you." He paused, his gaze dropping to the firelight playing across your collarbone, then rising slowly back to your eyes, a silent promise in their depths. "This place does not easily relinquish those it claims. And I suspect it has already begun to claim you." The fire crackled, spitting sparks, a mirroring of the sparks igniting within you. The night outside was dark, the rain had ceased, but the air was still charged, electric. You knew he was right. Blackwood Manor had indeed begun to claim you. But it wasn't just the manor. It was Wimhang. The velvet whispers had indeed just started, and they were growing louder, more insistent, promising a symphony of sensation, a tempest of passion, and an unraveling you now, terrifyingly, deeply desired. The journey into the heart of Blackwood, and into the uncharted territories of your own longing had truly begun. And you knew, with a certainty that thrilled and terrified, that you would follow wherever his obsidian eyes led. The air in the grand hall seemed to thicken, charged with an unspoken current that pulsed between you and Lord Blackwood. His obsidian eyes, once merely captivating, now felt like ancient wells, drawing you in, promising depths you hadn't dared to imagine. The terrifying certainty of your desire was a thrilling tremor beneath your skin, a counterpoint to the velvet whispers that now seemed to resonate, not just in the manor's shadows, but within your very soul. You knew you would follow, and the knowledge was a surrender you welcomed. He took a step closer, and the world seemed to hold its breath. The faint scent of old leather, ink, and something uniquely his, a deep, resonant musk that spoke of forests and ancient stone, enveloped you. He didn't touch you, not yet, but the proximity was a touch in itself, a silent promise. "Dinner awaits," he murmured, his voice a low thrum that vibrated through the floorboards and into your bones. It wasn't a question, but an invitation, a gentle tug on the silken thread that had begun to bind you. You nodded, unable to articulate a response, your throat suddenly dry with anticipation. He offered his arm, a formal gesture that felt profoundly intimate. Your fingers brushed his forearm, and a jolt, subtle yet undeniable, passed between you. His skin was warm beneath the fine fabric of his jacket, solid and reassuring. He led you through a series of dimly lit corridors, each one more opulent than the last, until you arrived at a smaller, more intimate dining room. A roaring fire danced in a massive stone hearth, casting flickering shadows that made the silver and crystal on the table gleam like captured starlight. The air was rich with the aroma of roasted herbs, and something subtly sweet, perhaps a dessert already prepared. The table was set for two, a lavish spread that seemed almost overwhelming in its elegance. Candlesticks, tall and slender, held candles that cast a soft, golden glow, illuminating the delicate floral arrangements and the intricate patterns on the china. A decanter of ruby red wine shimmered, promising warmth. He seated you with a graceful sweep of his hand, his fingers brushing your lower back for a fleeting moment that sent a shiver tracing its way up your spine. He then took his own seat opposite you. The heavy mahogany table, a silent barrier, yet his gaze bridged the distance with an intensity that burned. Throughout the meal, conversation flowed like the fine wine he poured, rich, complex, and intoxicating. He spoke of art, history, ancient myths, and the melancholic beauty of the Blackwood forests. You found yourself drawn into his world, offering insights and opinions you hadn't known you possessed. Emboldened by his attentive gaze, the way his lips curved into a slow, appreciative smile when you spoke. His eyes never left yours for long, and each time they met, a silent dialogue unfolded, a dance of curiosity and growing desire. The food itself was a symphony of flavors: tender roasted pheasant, delicate vegetables seasoned with unfamiliar spices, and a light, airy souffle that melted on your tongue. Each course was presented with quiet precision by a silent, almost invisible staff, their presence a mere whisper in the background. Yet, it wasn't the food that truly nourished you, but the exquisite tension, the magnetic pull across the polished table. He raised his glass, his hands strong and elegant. To the unexpected guest, he murmured, his voice laced with a subtle warmth that sent a flush to your cheeks. And to the unraveling of mysteries. You met his gaze, raising your own glass, the crystal cool against your fingertips. To mysteries, you echoed, your voice a little breathy, and to the courage to explore them. His smile deepened, a flash of something ancient and knowing in his eyes. Courage indeed. As the last plates were cleared, he rose, offering his hand once more. Perhaps a stroll through the winter gardens, or a moment by the fire in the drawing room. You chose the drawing room, drawn to the promise of warmth and the deepening intimacy of the evening. The drawing room was a sanctuary of hushed luxury, dominated by a magnificent fireplace where logs crackled merrily. Plush velvet armchairs and sofas were arranged around it, inviting repose. Bookshelves lined one wall, reaching to the high ceiling, their spines promising untold stories. He led you to a large, inviting sofa draped in deep emerald velvet. As you sat, the cushions yielded softly, enveloping you. He settled beside you, not too close, but close enough that you could feel the subtle radiation of his body heat, smell the faint scent of his cologne mingling with the wood smoke. He offered you a small snifter of amber liquid, its aroma complex and warming. A digestive, he explained. A rare brandy, aged in Blackwood oak. You took a cautious sip. It was smooth, fiery, and exquisitely complex, leaving a trail of warmth down your throat. The brandy, combined with the comfortable silence and his proximity, began to melt away any lingering inhibitions. Tell me, he began, his voice soft, what drew you to Blackwood? You hesitated, searching for the truth amidst the layers of your initial curiosity and the current undeniable magnetism. A need for something different. An escape from the mundane. A story, perhaps, that felt like it needed to be told. He leaned back, his eyes fixed on the dancing flames, but you felt the weight of his attention. And have you found your story? You turned to him, your heart thrumming. I think I'm just beginning to understand it. You paused then, emboldened by the brandy and the quiet intimacy. You asked, and you? Lord Blackwood, what keeps you here, in this magnificent isolated place? His gaze returned to you, slow and deliberate. A shadow seemed to flicker in their obsidian depths, quickly gone. This place, he said, his voice a low rumble, is my legacy, my refuge, my prison, perhaps at times, but it is also where I feel most alive, where the ancient pulse of the world still beats strong. Where the ancient pulse of the world still beats strong? He paused, a faint, enigmatic smile playing on his lips. And now, perhaps, it is where I find unexpected company. The implication hung in the air, a silken thread tightening around your heart. The velvet whispers seemed to coalesce around his words, promising companionship, connection, and something far deeper. He reached out, slowly, his hand moving towards yours, resting on the velvet cushion. Your breath hitched. His fingers were long, elegant, and strong. He didn't quite touch you, but hovered above your hand, the warmth of his skin radiating, creating an electric field between you. The anticipation was exquisite, almost unbearable. "Tell me," he murmured, his voice a silken caress, "what does the manna whisper to you?" His question was unexpected, yet it resonated deeply. You thought of the ancient stones, the rustling leaves, the feeling of being watched, guided, seduced. It whispers of secrets you confessed, your voice barely above a whisper, of forgotten passions, of time stretching endlessly. It whispers of being wanted. His fingers finally descended, covering your hand, warm and firm. A jolt, like lightning, shot through you, spreading warmth through your veins. He turned your hand over, tracing the lines on your palm with his thumb, a feather-light touch that sent shivers through your entire body. His touch was both tender and possessive, a silent claim. "And do you listen to its whispers?" he asked, his voice now lower, more intimate, a resonant hum that seemed to bypass your ears and speak directly to your skin. You met his gaze, your eyes wide, vulnerable, completely captivated. I can't help but listen." His thumb continued its slow hypnotic dance on your palm, sending sparks through your every nerve ending. He leaned closer, the scent of him, forest, ink, and something primal. Intoxicating. Your heart hammered against your ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the sudden, charged silence. The fire crackled, the only other sound in the vast room. "Good," he breathed, his voice a mere sigh against your lips, "because the manor has much to say. And so do I." His head dipped slowly, deliberately. Your eyes fluttered closed, a silent invitation, a desperate yearning. You felt the warm brush of his breath, the soft caress of his lips as they finally exquisitely met yours. It was not a forceful kiss, but a tender exploration, a soft pressing that held the weight of all the unspoken words, all the gathered tension. His lips were firm, warm, tasting of the rare brandy, and something uniquely, compellingly him. A shiver coursed through you, a delicious tremor that started deep within and radiated outwards. He deepened the kiss, just slightly, his lips parting, inviting your response. You responded without hesitation, a sigh escaping your throat as your own lips softened, yielded. His free hand, the one not holding yours, rose to cup your cheek, his thumb gently stroking your jawline. The touch was electric, his skin warm against yours. The kiss grew, slowly, like a blossoming flower. It was a language spoken not in words, but in the gentle pressure, the soft intake of breath, the subtle shift of angles. You felt yourself lean into him, drawn by an irresistible force, a deep, primal need to be closer, to erase the last vestiges of space between you. His tongue, warm and velvet soft, traced the seam of your lips, a silent question. You parted them, a soft moan escaping your throat, and he accepted the invitation, a slow, gentle foray that sent a wave of pure sensation through you. The taste of him was intoxicating, a complex blend of sophisticated warmth and raw, undeniable masculinity. Your fingers, still intertwined with his, tightened, clinging to him as if to anchor yourself in the whirlwind of sensation. His kiss deepened further, becoming more possessive, more hungry, yet still imbued with a profound tenderness that made your heart ache with a sweet, aching longing. You felt fire ignite within you, a slow, delicious burn that spread through your limbs, pooling in the core of your being. When he finally pulled back, it was only by inches, his forehead resting against yours, his eyes still closed. Your breath came in ragged gasps, your lips tingling, swollen from his kiss. The world spun, then settled, but nothing felt quite the same. The air crackled with the aftermath, thick with unspoken promises. He opened his eyes, their obsidian depths now alight with a fierce, tender glow. You taste like starlight and forgotten dreams, he whispered, his voice hoarse, his breath warm against your face. A blush spread across your cheeks, but it was not from embarrassment, but from the raw, intimate truth of his words. You could only gaze back at him, lost in the depths of his eyes, your own mirroring the desire you saw there. He pulled back fully, but kept your hand in his thumb still tracing lazy circles on your palm. He stood, pulling you gently with him. Come, he murmured, his voice a low invitation that left no room for doubt. Let me show you the true heart of Blackwood. You followed, your legs feeling a little unsteady, your entire being tingling with the aftershocks of his kiss. He didn't lead you back through the public corridors, but up a narrower, winding staircase, its steps carpeted in thick, silent velvet. The air here was warmer, imbued with a subtle floral scent, mingled with his unique aroma. Each step was a journey deeper into the manor, and deeper into the unspoken promise between you. The walls were adorned with tapestries depicting ancient, romantic scenes, their colors muted by time but still vibrant with narrative. Soft sconces cast pools of light, illuminating the path without dispelling the seductive shadows. He didn't speak, but his presence was a constant, powerful force, guiding you, reassuring you. Your hand in his was a lifeline, a connection that felt utterly natural, utterly right. You felt a profound sense of destiny, as if every decision, every path taken, had led you to this moment, to this man, to this house. Finally he stopped before a heavy carved oak door, its surface polished to a dark sheen. He released your hand for a moment, to push it open, revealing a room that took your breath away. It was a bedchamber, grand yet intimate, bathed in the soft glow of a dozen flickering candles. A massive four-poster bed, draped in rich dark fabrics, stood as the undeniable centerpiece, its pillows plump and inviting. The air was filled with the subtle, intoxicating scent of lavender and something else, something richer, more sensual, perhaps from a sachet hidden amongst the linens. A fire crackled in a smaller, more elegant hearth, casting dancing reflections on the polished wooden floor. Velvet curtains, drawn back to reveal tall, arched windows, hinted at the moonlit gardens outside. A plush rug, the color of deep burgundy, lay before the fire, inviting. A small, ornate table held a decanter of water and 2 delicate glasses. He stepped aside, a silent invitation in his eyes, which held a tender vulnerability you hadn't seen before, mingled with undeniable desire. Welcome, he whispered, his voice husky, to my sanctuary. You stepped inside, your gaze sweeping over the luxurious details, your heart pounding a rhythm against your ribs that was both frantic and utterly joyous. This was it. The culmination of the whispers, the longing, the irresistible pull. He closed the door softly behind you, then turned, his gaze locking with yours. He moved towards you, slowly, deliberately, giving you time, allowing you to absorb the moment. His eyes never left yours, a silent question, a powerful invitation. You didn't shy away. Instead, you met his gaze, your own eyes shining with a mixture of anticipation, trust, and a fierce, blossoming desire. You took a step towards him, then another, closing the small distance between you. He stopped, reaching out to cup your face with both hands, his thumbs stroking your cheekbones. His touch was reverent, tender, as if he held something infinitely precious. His gaze was intense, burning with a passion that mirrored your own. "Are you truly here?" he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "Or am I dreaming?" You leaned into his touch, your hands rising to rest on his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath the fine fabric. "I am here," you whispered, your voice catching. "And I am not dreaming." He smiled, a slow, breathtaking smile that reached his eyes, making them sparkle like polished obsidian. "Good," he breathed. Then slowly, with exquisite care, he lowered his head and kissed you again. This kiss was deeper, more consuming than the last. It was a kiss of homecoming, of long-awaited reunion. His lips moved over yours with a hunger that was both tender and demanding, tasting, teasing, exploring. Your own lips responded, parting eagerly, inviting him deeper. His tongue danced with yours, a passionate waltz that sent shivers of pleasure through your entire being. His hands slid from your face, down your neck, over your shoulders, and then to your waist, drawing you closer until your bodies were flush against each other. You could feel the hard planes of his chest against your breasts, the warmth of his body seeping into yours, igniting a fire that had been simmering for so long. Your hands, still on his chest, moved upwards, tracing the strong line of his jaw, tangling in the soft hair at the nape of his neck. You pressed closer, a soft moan escaping your throat as the kiss deepened, becoming a dizzying vortex of sensation. He broke the kiss reluctantly, his forehead resting against yours once more, his breath coming in ragged gasps, mirroring your own. "You are more beautiful than I ever imagined," he whispered, his voice raw with emotion. He pulled back slightly, his eyes still locked with yours, and slowly, deliberately, he began to unbutton your dress. Each button unfastened was a tiny release, a soft sigh of fabric, a gradual revelation. His fingers were gentle, brushing against your skin, sending shivers in their wake. You stood still, mesmerized, watching his focused gaze, feeling the delicious anticipation build with each button. When the last button was undone, he eased the fabric from your shoulders, letting it slide down your arms, a silken whisper against your skin. It pooled at your feet, a discarded shell. You stood before him in your delicate underthings, feeling vulnerable yet utterly desired. His gaze swept over you, lingering on your curves, a silent appreciation that made your skin tingle. He reached out, his fingers tracing the lace of your slip, the soft curve of your collarbone, the swell of your breasts. His touch was light, reverent, yet intensely sensual, awakening every nerve ending. A soft gasp escaped your lips as his fingertips brushed your nipple, sending a jolt of pleasure through you. He watched your reaction, a slow smile gracing his lips, his eyes burning with a knowing warmth. "Exquisite," he murmured, his voice a low, throaty rumble that vibrated through your very core. He then, with an elegant swiftness, shed his own jacket, tossing it onto a nearby chair. He began to unbutton his shirt, his movements fluid and unhurried. You watched, captivated, as the fine linen parted, revealing the broad expanse of his chest, muscled and sculpted. A fine smattering of dark hair adorned his sternum, tapering down towards his navel. He pulled the shirt free, letting it fall to the floor. Then, he reached for his waistcoat, then his cravat, each piece of clothing shedding a layer of formality, revealing more of the raw, powerful man beneath. He stood before you, his gaze never leaving yours, his powerful chest rising and falling with his quickened breath. He reached for your hands, intertwining your fingers with his, and led you towards the bed. The burgundy rug felt soft beneath your bare feet as you crossed the room. The scent of lavender and something richer, more primal, grew stronger, intoxicating. He sat on the edge of the bed, pulling you gently between his knees. He looked up at you, his eyes dark with hunger, yet filled with a profound tenderness. He reached out, his hands finding the delicate straps of your slip, and with a soft tug, they slipped from your shoulders. He peeled the lace and silk away, slowly, sensuously, until it joined your dress on the floor. You stood before him, completely nude, feeling a rush of heat and a delicious vulnerability. His gaze was a warm caress, lingering, appreciating, adoring. You felt no shame, only an intoxicating awareness of your own body and of his ardent desire. He reached for you, drawing you down onto his lap. You settled against him, your skin meeting his bare chest, a shock of warmth and sensation. Your arms instinctively wrapped around his neck, your fingers tangling in his dark hair as you pulled him closer, desperate for his touch. He kissed your neck, slowly, deliciously, his lips tracing a path of fire from your earlobe down to your collarbone. You arched into him, a soft moan escaping your lips as his teeth gently nipped at your sensitive skin. His hands roamed over your back, strong and sure, tracing the curve of your spine, pulling you even closer against his hard, aroused body. He lifted you slightly, his hands sliding down to cup your bare bottom, lifting you higher onto his lap. The friction was exquisite, sending shivers through you. You gasped, pressing your face into his neck, inhaling his scent, the intoxicating musk of him filling your senses. He stood, lifting you effortlessly into his arms. You wrapped your legs around his waist, clinging to him as he carried you the few steps to the bed. He laid you down gently on the soft, cool sheets, his body following yours, covering you with his length. His weight was a comforting pressure, his warmth a delicious blanket. He propped himself up on his elbows, gazing down at you, his eyes devouring every inch of you. His lips, swollen from kissing, curved into a tender smile. "You are perfection," he whispered, his voice thick with adoration. He began to kiss you again, a slow, languid exploration. His lips moved from your mouth, down your jawline, tracing the elegant curve of your neck, lingering at the hollow of your throat. His tongue teased and tasted, sending shivers through your entire body. His hands, no longer content with merely holding, began their own sensual journey. They roamed over your sides, tracing the curve of your ribs, moving lower, caressing your hips, your thighs. Each touch was deliberate, igniting new fires, leaving a trail of exquisite sensation in its wake. You arched into his touch, a soft moan escaping your lips, as his fingers brushed the sensitive skin between your thighs. He heard it, and a low growl rumbled in his chest. His gaze met yours, dark and hungry, promising deeper pleasures. He lowered his head, his lips finding your breast, suckling gently, sending a wave of pure, unadulterated pleasure through you. You gasped, your fingers tangling in his hair, pressing him closer. His tongue teased your nipple, making it harden and tingle, sending ripples of sensation to your core. He moved to the other breast, giving it the same exquisite attention, while his hand continued its slow, tantalizing exploration downwards. You felt the tips of his fingers brush against the sensitive folds of your femininity, a feather-light touch that sent a gasp tearing from your throat. "So wet for me," he murmured, his voice a dark caress against your skin. "So ready." His words, spoken so intimately, so boldly, sent a fresh wave of heat through you. You felt yourself opening to him, yielding, wanting, needing. You shifted restlessly beneath him, your hips instinctively arching, silently begging for more. He understood. His fingers, now bolder, began to tease and stroke, circling your clitoris, then dipping inside, a slow, deliberate exploration that made your breath hitch. Your body tensed, then melted, a flood of liquid pleasure washing through you. You cried out softly, your body trembling with the intensity of the sensations. His mouth returned to yours, silencing your cries with a deep, consuming kiss, his tongue mimicking the rhythm of his fingers. You kissed him back with a desperate hunger, your nails lightly raking his shoulders, lost in the escalating pleasure. He pulled back from the kiss, gazing into your eyes, his own filled with a fierce, possessive desire. "Look at me," he whispered, his voice a low command. "See what you do to me." You looked and saw the raw passion etched on his face, the bulging vein in his neck, the dark hunger in his eyes. You saw his own aroused body pressing against yours, a powerful testament to his desire. It was intoxicating, empowering. He shifted his weight, aligning himself between your legs. You felt the hard, hot tip of him press against your entrance, a silent promise, a thrilling anticipation. Your breath hitched, your hips arching instinctively, silently inviting him in. He moved slowly, with exquisite care, pushing gently, steadily. You felt a stretch, a momentary resistance, then a slow, glorious invasion. You gasped, a mix of pain and pleasure tearing from your throat as he filled you. Slowly, completely. You wrapped your legs around his waist, pulling him deeper, wanting every inch of him. He paused, letting you adjust, letting your body acclimate to his presence, his eyes never leaving yours, a silent communication of tenderness and passion. Then, with a low groan that vibrated through your entire body, he began to move. Slowly at first, a gentle, rhythmic rocking that sent waves of sensation through you. You matched his rhythm, your hips rising to meet his thrusts, your body moving in a primal dance of desire. The world narrowed to the feel of his skin against yours, the sound of your mingled breaths, the exquisite pressure and release within you. Each thrust was deeper, more urgent, sending sparks of fire through your veins. You were no longer just two bodies, but one, entwined, lost in a swirling tempest of sensation. You cried out his name, a breathless whisper, as the pleasure built, a relentless tide, threatening to overwhelm you. He responded with a guttural groan, his thrusts becoming more powerful, more desperate. His mouth found yours again, consuming your cries, his tongue dancing with yours in a passionate frenzy. The climax arrived, a blinding, shattering wave that ripped through you, tearing a cry from your throat. Your body arched, trembling violently, every nerve ending alive with exquisite sensation. You felt him tense above you, his own release mirroring yours, a powerful groan escaping his lips as he poured himself into you, hot and thick. You clung to him, your nails digging into his shoulders, your body still trembling with the aftershocks of pleasure. He buried his face in your neck, his breath coming in ragged gasps, his body heavy and warm atop yours. Slowly, the storm subsided, leaving behind a profound sense of peace, of completion. You lay entwined, the lingering warmth of his body, a comforting weight, the scent of sex and his unique musk filling the air. Your heart beat a slow, contented rhythm against his. He shifted, pulling back slightly to gaze down at you, his eyes soft, tender, filled with an emotion so deep it almost brought tears to your eyes. He brushed a stray strand of hair from your face, his touch gentle, reverent. "My love," he whispered, his voice hoarse with emotion, "my beautiful, brave love." You smiled, a soft, contented smile, feeling utterly cherished, utterly seen. You had followed his obsidian eyes, and they had led you to a place you hadn't known existed, a place of profound passion, of deep connection, of an unraveling that had remade you. He moved, carefully, pulling you closer until you were spooned against him, his arm wrapped tightly around your waist, his chin resting on your head. The fire in the hearth crackled softly, casting a warm glow on the ancient room. The moon outside streamed through the windows, painting silver stripes on the rich fabrics. You drifted to sleep in his arms, feeling utterly safe, utterly content. The velvet whispers of Blackwood Manor were no longer promises of mystery, but a lullaby of love, a symphony of sensation that had found its glorious crescendo. You awoke slowly. The morning light a soft, diffused glow through the heavy velvet curtains. The first thing you felt was the warmth of his body spooned against yours, his arm still wrapped around your waist, his breath a soft caress against the back of your neck. A deep sense of peace settled over you, a profound feeling of belonging. You shifted slightly, turning in his arms to face him. He was still asleep, his dark hair a gentle tumble against the pillow, his strong features softened in slumber. You traced the line of his jaw with a fingertip, a tender caress. His eyes fluttered open, revealing the familiar depths of obsidian, now soft with sleep and affection. A slow smile spread across his lips as he saw you, a smile that reached his eyes and filled them with warmth. "Good morning," he murmured, his voice raspy with sleep, yet holding a new tender intimacy. "Good morning," you replied, your voice soft. You leaned in, pressing a soft kiss to his lips. It was a kiss of quiet contentment, of shared warmth, a promise of many more to come. He pulled you closer, burying his face in your hair, inhaling your scent. "Stay," he whispered, his voice a plea, a demand, a promise. "Stay here, with me. Let the whispers of Blackwood tell us new stories together." You knew, with a certainty that settled deep in your soul, that this was where you belong. The journey into the heart of Blackwood had truly begun with his obsidian eyes, and now it had led you to the uncharted territories of your own heart, where you had found not just passion, but a profound, undeniable love. You had unraveled indeed, but in that unraveling you had found yourself and found him. "Yes," you whispered back, your voice full of emotion, "I'll stay." And as the sun slowly rose over the ancient Blackwood forests, casting golden hues through the manor's windows, you knew your story had not ended, but had just truly begun, woven into the very fabric of this magnificent, mysterious place, forever bound to the man who had shown you the true meaning of desire and the enduring power of love. The velvet whispers had indeed become a symphony, and it was a melody you would cherish for all your days,